The loss of memory is a global reach strategy. It is the best instrument to make no one able to get out of the cave, to stop the truth from being revealed, so its shining dazzle us and force us to truly assume our responsibilities. To face this global and invasive strategy, to stop the final triumph of the loss of memory, is an essential task for modern societies, a task that is all the more urgent as global are the dangers that surround us and the opportunities that are open to us. This is a task for everyone, and journalists can contribute by performing correctly their humble job, the job of telling what's happening. Simply that, no more, no less, to tell what's happening, to tell it the best as possible. Luckily, there have been and still are journalists who are able to do it. And I am not only referring to those journalists who daily risk their lives to break the news, to those who not only risk their lives, but who even lose their lives. And there are a lot, more than 70 the last year. I am also referring to those who, with the best simplicity, tell us what's happening in the different places of the world, dismantling fraud and giving to those who are forgotten the place they deserve. I will only give one example, the one of a dear friend from Poland, Ryszard Kapuściński, what a person with the minimal means of a reporter, always sent to the end of the world by a press agency more than modest, with the pockets always empty, has been able to tell us the story of the world of football between Salvador and Honduras, the story of the Shah of Persia, the one of the Emperor of Ethiopia, the one of half of Africa and half of the Soviet Union. Ryszard is unique, but he's not the only one. There are many more. Even though it seems unbelievable, there are a lot of good journalists. Some of them are in this room, on the other side of the podium, of course. It is a pleasure to talk about good journalists, of the ones who are able to open closed doors, to give some light on the events, to stop irresponsibility from winning space. The list would be very long, and I have had the fortune of meeting some of them. At the end, there is no better fortune than having friends that one doesn't deserve. But there is another kind of journalism, and its influence is bigger and bigger. A journalism that legitimates, decides, publishes lies, and promotes hate and wars. Just as a great professional of Spanish journalism, Miguel Ángel Aguilar, has noticed, wars don't start in battlefield anymore. They start on the editing tables of the newspapers. Aguilar tells me a very revealing story that took place during the Spanish-American War, called by the Spaniards the Cuban War, more than 100 years ago. A photographer that had been sent to the island by one of the main newspapers of the rising American empire asked his director to come back as soon as possible to the metropolis, since nothing of what had been explained to him was happening. since there was no war to take pictures of. "Stay there," was the director's answer. "You make sure to take the pictures I need. I will make sure that there will be a war." Much more recent episodes in time and closer in space show us that wars and coup d'etat don't start with the taking of parliaments or governments' buildings, but with the taking of TV stations. The evil use of journalism as a war instrument adds the rubbish information. The yellow press or the pink press, with a considerable economic profit, trivialize everything and submit anyone to the torture of being dragged by the newspapers, by radio stations, or by televisions. And if someone tries to defend his intimacy, his honor, or both things, the portion of punishment doubles. I wouldn't like to be alarmist on this point, for the readers and the listeners are more intelligent than some people believe, and at the end they put everyone in the place they deserve. At the end they laugh about the clownish behavior of the fake investigation journalists that inform them about the adventure of the fake famous. They laugh about the fake tragedies of the Big Brothers or the fake laughs of the TV soaps. To fight against this degraded journalism, there is no need of special laws, which are usually more dangerous than helpful. On the contrary, the responsibility of journalists and the media must be increased. And to do so, we must try to make the informative solvency more profitable than the impudence. This is not easy to achieve, because getting readers with news that are true, contrasted, and solvent requires talent, imagination, and modesty. And the responsible, innovating, and attractive new is not received by fax or by phone. To search it, one must have will. To find it, one must be lucky. A great Spanish journalist, Sol Gallego Díaz, who years ago left the desirable post of second director of the daily El País to get in charge of the difficult task of defending her readers, investigated on her own the origins of the news that her journal, one of the most serious and famous of Spain, published. The original sources of the information were, almost in the 70% of the cases, people linked to institutions, organizations, or companies whose job was precisely sending those news to the media. Less than a third of the information originally came from own sources, from the own work of the journalists. In most of the cases, the facts were correct. They had been contrasted and each part had had the chance of expressing themselves. But the truth is that most of the news were news because someone wanted it that way. One main aspect of the social responsibility of journalists is to avoid becoming nothing but a transmitter of someone else's interests. It is not always an easy task.